Hi, this is Andrew Grease with Quality Equipment and Spray, QSpray.com. Today we're going to talk about 12-volt power sprayers and some of the design problems you really need to avoid before you purchase a 12-volt power sprayer. And we've got some good photos of some sprayers that we've seen that can demonstrate some of these problems that you really want to avoid so that you don't have downtime, chemical spills, unnecessary repair expense, that sort of thing. So let's jump through these. First is you want to make sure that the sprayer is built using quality components. And you can see here the arrow on the left is pointing to this hose that's split. This is not chemical hose. This is, I don't know, some kind of cheap black rubber hose, and it's not designed for this application. You can see it's split right there. A good hose should not split like that. And then the other arrow pointing up, you can see they've used just cheap plastic fittings, and we just don't like using plastic fittings in any situation where they're supporting weight or have torque on them. So these are just examples of cheap parts that you should look out for and avoid. It's not worth saving a couple dollars here if you're going to have a chemical spill. Here's other examples of cheap plastic parts. So we've got three arrows here pointing to these cheap plastic elbows. The two on the right are, certainly going to get sun and probably going to crack from the sun. The one on the left side of the filter, is probably going to crack because of the torque of opening and closing that filter. And so, it's just not worth saving a couple of bucks here. Use good quality fittings. If you're going to use plastic fittings, use good quality banjo fittings that are much higher quality than these. These are just cheap plastic or nylon. You can get poly fittings that are much higher quality. But in this case, if one of these fittings breaks, you have some downtime. Here's a worse situation. Here at the bottom of the tank, the output or suction line of the tank, if this fitting breaks, not only do you have downtime, but you're going to spill the entire contents of the tank. And how do I know? Here's an actual example. Custom brought in a sprayer. They had a backpack that wasn't secured, fell against this fitting, and not only did the elbow break, but the tank fitting cracked. They spilled 50 gallons. It was a horror show. A ton of time cleanup and quite a bit of expense. This tank had to be replaced because of this cheap tank fitting here. It wasn't possible to fix this. So it's important to look at these fittings and small parts before you buy, not just the bigger, more expensive parts like the pumps and the hose reel. Here's the right way to do it. We use all brass fittings so that if something falls against it or you hit a bump, it's not going to crack. There's also a shutoff valve so that if you do have a leak down the line, you can shut it off. That's the right way to do it. Okay, here's an example. You can see the arrows pointing to some of the electrical. There's some connections, some fuses, and a solenoid. And they're exposed here. And you can see in this picture, if the driver were to hit the brakes, that Birchmeier backpack could slam into any of that electrical stuff and cause downtime. So make sure that things like your electrical work is shielded or protected or not exposed in this manner so you don't have a downtime situation. Here's one that we thought was quite interesting. In this case, whoever built the sprayer put these fittings on so tight you can't take them off. I think what happened was they probably plumbed the pumps and then put the pumps in place and bolted them down. So if you wanted to change one of these fittings or one of these hoses, you'd have to unbolt the pump, remove it, and then change the fittings. This is crazy. You need to make sure that your sprayer is designed for easy maintenance. And in this case, it would have been easy. All they had to do was raise one of the pumps up a couple inches or turn them both on their sides. I mean, there's a bunch of solutions here. They just happen to pick the worst one. Here's a hose reel swivel that has way too much weight hanging off it. When you have this much weight hanging off the swivel, you're going to do much quicker damage to the O-rings or the gaskets that are inside the swivel. You're going to have a leak much sooner than you need to, and you're going to be replacing those O-rings a lot quicker than you need to. You can see they have all this weight. There's even a shutoff valve there, probably for agitation. Most of this plumbing should be put somewhere else or secured to something on the rig so that it's not all that weight's not hanging on the swivel. Here's another bad hose reel swivel design. You can see the output of the pump goes directly to the swivel, and that hose is taut. And hose reel manufacturers want there to be slack in the line to the swivel. It's called a swivel because they want it to swivel. And in this case, there's no slack, so that swivel can't swivel. And what you're going to do is you're going to wear out the O-rings in that swivel, and eventually you're going to wear out the brass in the swivel because it can't swivel with the hose reel as you unwind it. The other thing that's a concern is the other end of that hose is connected to the pump on a cheap plastic fitting, so that all that stress that's on that line is going to be put on that output fitting to the pump, and eventually it's going to crack and break. And if you're at the end of 300 feet of hose and that swivel breaks, or that fitting breaks, you're not going to know what happened. By the time you get back here, your pump doesn't know the fitting broke. It's going to keep pumping. You could have a huge puddle of chemical in your truck because that swivel broke. So this is just really, really bad idea. Here's another bad idea. SureFlows are great pumps, and SureFlow tells you can mount the pumps in almost any orientation except this one. They do not want the actual motor below the pump, because if and when the pump leaks, it's just going to be dripping on that motor, and that constant dripping of chemical on the motor will eventually short out that motor. So this is a really bad idea. Someone here clearly didn't know what they were doing. So these are just some things to look for. A couple of suggestions. Make sure you're thinking about operation and maintenance before you buy your sprayer. You want to get input from users, from the people who are going to do the maintenance. You want to picture what the equipment is going to look like in the vehicle. You want to ask what parts are going to need maintenance, where do we get the parts, who will do the maintenance, or how do we do that, and just look to make sure that you're buying a quality sprayer with quality components. If you do need a 12-volt power sprayer or another sprayer for your pest or landscape business, please call us at QSpray.com. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.